What's not nice and not pleasant is Sam Bankman-Fried, the goofy-haired gentleman at the head of this FTX scandal. I want to bring in my next guest. Good morning, Carl. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well, thanks.
Carl is not only the NetChoice Vice President and General Counsel, but he and I think last month, sat next to each other on a panel on social media applications at a conference down in Arizona. It was great to see you then. It's great to have you on today. So let me just ask you for the 40,000 feet approach. Who's Sam Bankman-Fried, and why does the crux of this FTX scandal affect everyday Americans?
Thanks for having me on. Everyone is familiar with Bernie Madoff. He's this crook that scammed a bunch of people out of a lot of money through what was basically fraud, where he convinced people, hey, give me your money, I'll make you a ton of money, and it'll be perfectly safe. Sam Bankman-Fried is a 29-year-old who basically ran a similar scam, basically fraud. Give me your money, I'll convert it into crypto, and I'll keep it nice and safe. And what did he do? No, he took the money, he embezzled it, he abused it, he engaged in wire fraud and all these other things. And at the end of the day, what you saw was the collapse of $7 billion just evaporate overnight when everyone realized that his company had no close, that it was a house of cards, just like Bernie Madoff. And then what makes this more interesting is that he turns out to be one of the top donors to the Democratic Party. He donated more than $40 million in this last campaign cycle, and he's also accused of engaging in election fraudulent donations, so basically using other people's names to siphon and hide money as part of a donation to the Democratic Party. So this is the scandal. It's fraud, and a lot of people lost a lot of money.
Now since the scandal is primarily based in embezzlement and fraud and sort of breaking covenants between you and your investors, what do you think the implication will be for sort of the broader crypto exchange and the value of cryptocurrency? Is this going to have some deleterious effect downstream, or do you think confidence in those currencies will be restored?
You're already seeing confidence in those currencies being restored over the past week since the indictment. So keep in mind, Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX CEO, the head of this whole scam, he was indicted. He was arrested a couple of days ago when he was trying to hide out in the Bahamas. And once that happened, you saw the value of crypto start to go back up. You saw Bitcoin go up. You saw Ethereum go up. And you're seeing a lot of people be reminded that the market itself, the crypto market, is reliable. The problem is we need to kind of get rid of and go after these bad actors, like what you saw with FTX. And at the end of the day, this is just commonplace fraud. Congress needed no new laws. The banking sector needed new laws. Nobody needs to pass new regulations. This is something that has been illegal for 200 years. And just like we took down Bernie Madoff, they're going to take down Sam Bankman-Fried under the same fraud regulations.
So let's switch gears a little bit to Twitter. First of all, why were you mentioned in Matt Taibbi's reporting? What is your involvement with this? How did you manage to get in there? Let's ask you that.
Yeah, so for those who are unaware, in the first tranche of the Twitter disclosures, the Twitter files that have been being made available consistently by Elon Musk, my email to Twitter was included in that first tranche. And NetChoice is a free speech trade association that fights for free expression and free enterprise. We've been doing it for 20 years. One of our members includes Twitter. And part of our job is to let them know what's going on. What are we hearing from people in Congress? And basically, my email was telling Twitter, hey, Democrats are kind of happy that you're blocking the Hunter Biden laptop, but the Republicans are hopping mad. And I think I used the phrase, there's going to be a whirlwind if they continue to block the Hunter Biden laptop Twitter thread. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And we warned them about this outcome. And basically, you are seeing from Jim Jordan, Catherine Morris-Rogers, James Comer, calls for investigations on how much the government was pressuring. So at the end of the day, what we were doing was just making Twitter aware of what was going to happen if they allowed the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security to continue to pressure them to suppress content.
You are obviously an expert on the First Amendment and how it relates to social media. What does the case law indicate? I mean, I don't remember, back in my days in school or anything, any case law recently on social media and the government's intervention in preventing speech. So what is sort of the state of case law, and how much liability does the federal government potentially have placed themselves by directly interfering with Twitter's broadcasting of news and political messaging?
The case law is kind of, unfortunately, I know when I see it type standard when it comes to this type of coercion. So taking it 10,000-foot level, the First Amendment forbids the government from forcing any of us to say something or remove something that we don't want to say or remove. It's compelled speech. It is one of the things that separates us from pretty much the rest of the world, that we enshrine such protection. And that allows us to freely criticize our leaders, for example. Can't do that in a lot of parts of the world. India, if you do that, you go to prison. Even in France and Germany, they're not very strong on protecting free speech that they don't like. We have the First Amendment. Now, what happens is the government can't go and force Twitter to remove content, but it can kind of lean on them a lot. And the question is, how much is that lean going to then turn Twitter into almost being an agent of the government? There's a case going on right now. NetChoice actually filed an amicus brief on it called Changizi v. Department of Health and Human Services, which goes to the heart of this issue. Was the Health and Human Services engaging in a violation of the First Amendment in removal of COVID information or COVID disinformation, whatever the government wanted to call it at the time? And so the courts are actually looking at this today. And the problem is the legal stature is kind of wishy-washy. What I'd like to see happen, and we have legislation in Congress today to do this, is to make it crystal clear that if any government employee, I don't care if you're in the White House, your Homeland Security, your Health and Human Services, your FBI, whatever, if you engage in this type of coercion of social media for political purposes, you will face repercussions, which can include loss of your pension and your job. And that's a quick and easy first step because the courts take a lot of time. And federal employees care about one thing above all, and that is, and rightfully so, their jobs and their pensions. And when you put that at risk, not the reputation of the not the reputation of the FBI, not the reputation of the government or their principals, but if you put their financial interests on the line, they will stop. And that's what this legislation seeks to do.
Carl, I got to be honest, you put my financial interest on the line, I'll probably stop too. We got to leave it there. Thank you, as always, for bringing clarity to this complex environment. We got to take a quick break with Debbie Duhame, get the traffic update,